Welcome to yet another AutopsyRantz. This is the 5th addition to this little series here. And we do have some interesting things to talk about because we haven't done one of these in a while. I've done some other videos, my stateless solution videos on privatizing defense. I've done a couple of response videos about libertarianism being selfish, and also the more recent video from Dusty Smith back in 2012. Hope everybody's enjoyed those. I love doing the rebuttal videos, something I used to do back in the day. I like to sit down and actually talk. I don't like the I'm just trying to own whoever I'm talking about. I'm not into that shit. Never really been a huge fan of it, but I do like responding to ideas that I think are prevalent about whatever topic it happens to be. But yeah, those are the recent videos. I haven't done one of these in a while, so there is a lot to talk about. I guess first we have to start with, we're really coming down to Election Day. I'm recording this on October the 15th. Obviously, Election Day, November the 3rd. Who knows after that when we'll actually get the final results of who won due to mail-in ballots. Though it does seem that more people are voting in person than mail-in ballots, at least around here for early voting. Because I did actually vote yesterday, and I'll discuss that a little bit later. But where we got to start, if we're going to talk about this, we really have to start with the debates. Obviously, there was the infamous now Trump-Biden debate, that first debate hosted by Chris Wallace, which, look, that debate was awful. And I see some people now, in hindsight, are kind of I guess, going back to it and trying to pretend that it wasn't really as bad as everybody thought it was. But, dude, it was a clusterfuck. It is completely unwatchable. Almost everyone that I talked to after that, I remember watching it with the wife, and she was blown away by it. And everybody that I talked to about it has said the exact same thing. I couldn't even finish that. Okay, and what that does is that hurts both candidates, but it really hurts Trump more than anyone else because Trump is behind in all the national polls, and we'll have to get into that about how accurate I think the national polls are. But Trump is definitely, he has to do a better job in boosting his numbers. And obviously, the only people whose polls should have been boosted after that are third-party polls because, it was awful. Okay, Biden's not good, but I think Biden did win that debate in the sense that Biden didn't collapse, he didn't fall down, he didn't have a fucking stroke. His stumbling and mumbling was relatively minor, whereas Donald Trump was just, interrupting him every time that he talked. Trump came off just a bit too aggressive in that. But it's also funny when you look at the debate polls for that, and you look at where did Trump do good, where did Biden do good. Some of the polls that I'm hearing about are, CNN poll, it was 64 or 65% Biden winning, which means 35% of CNN's audience was behind Trump on that. That seems bizarre to me. But I hear the Telemundo poll was 66% Trump winning. So I don't know what exactly is happening with that. I don't know how anybody can watch that and is aware of what's at stake here, aware of what's going on, and look at that and not think that it was just absolutely awful. Not even in terms of just substance. They're all bad in substance. The people who think the older debates were just way more substantive and we got way more accomplished and there was more harmony, people could get along, the divide wasn't... Dude, fuck that. Fuck that. All of these politicians, and especially modern history, have been horrible. They've been fucking awful. The debates haven't been substantive. So you're not getting any more of that. It's just, this was really bad because it was just a bunch of old people yelling at each other for over an hour and a half. So no, it was a horrible debate. I think Trump needs everything he can get out of these debate performances if he expects to win. That didn't happen there. Now it's looking like this second one won't even happen at all because Trump, obviously, everyone knows, caught COVID. And with having COVID, they weren't going to be able to do an in-person debate. Then it was suggested that they do a kind of an online debate where everybody was going to be in a different location. Trump turned that down. And by the way, I can't really blame him for doing that, especially when, if the moderator has power to mute or to silence or whatever. I understand in theory that can sound like a good thing, but it's going to be a clusterfuck. I don't see him having anything to gain from that. So I can understand from his perspective not doing that. Now, obviously, we also had the VP debate, the Kamala Harris versus Mike Pence. I watched that as well. Obviously, you know, they're seated, they're 12 feet apart, they've got all the glass between them and all that kind of stuff. It was a better debate just in terms of actually dissing out ideas. I think Pence did a significantly better job than Trump did at rebutting some of the things. That was another thing whenever there was a moment of clarity in the first debate with Trump and Biden. Whenever there was a moment of clarity, Trump missed so many opportunities that I'm sitting there listening, and I'm not even a Trump supporter. I of the two of them, I would rather, you know, Trump beats Biden, but I'm not a fan of Trump either. I think Trump is just on all the things Trump is bad at, Biden is worse. So, I mean, policy things, you know, economics and, you know, even spending, healthcare, minimum wage, all that kind of stuff, Biden's worse at, you know, guns, whatever. But there were so many opportunities there where you're like, well, bam, where's the punch? You got to punch back with it. Well, he didn't. And where he didn't, Pence actually did. I was really glad to hear Pence push back against the tax proposals under Joe Biden and the Biden-Harris administration. Which who knows what she'll do if he dies, if Biden can't hack it, because Biden will be 82 at the end of his first term, 82 or 83, something like that. It's very possible that Kamala Harris could be president of the United States. So I mean, the VP debates do matter in that sense. But I was glad to see him actually push back against the tax plans from Biden, where I won't raise taxes on anyone making less than $400,000 a year, though I'm also going to repeal the Trump tax cuts, which you can't have it both ways. But I'm glad to hear Pence push back on that. I was glad to hear Pence push on some of the other things that he did about, like, you know, the looting and the rioting that's going on in the cities and stuff like that. I mean, Trump and Biden did get into that a bit, but Pence just had a much better approach to it. And this is the thing that was really evident in the Harris-Pence debate, is we all knew Kamala Harris is horrible. Kamala Harris was horrible when she ran in the Democratic primary, when she was talking about, when they asked her why her polling wasn't very good in the Democratic primary. She was like, well, it just is indicative of the racism and sexism in the country. I guess without acknowledging that it is a Democratic primary. So if anybody's sexist and racist, it's the fucking Democrats. You're seeing like the left-wingers in the country just aren't ready for a black woman. And no, you're just awful. You're just really bad. And it becomes way more evident and way more eye-rolling and nauseating when she constantly brings up a race issue or a woman issue. And compare that to Pence, which, say what you will about Mike Pence. Mike Pence is a very skilled politician. The way he handled that, I remember watching that with my brother at my house, my brother and my wife. And I was just kind of like blown away. I'm not a Pence fan, but I'm like watching it and just being like, dude, this dude is like a skilled politician. This is what you get when you're the exact opposite of Donald Trump, and you know how to do these things. You know how to explain these things in what is seemingly, you know, a respectable debate and all that. I thought Pence undeniably, in my opinion, won that. But of course, as soon as the debate was over, we were watching it, I think, on ABC. And as soon as it was over, the immediate coverage when it came back to the anchors was, wow, Mike Pence interrupted her a lot. Like, how is this going to poll with women voters who the Trump campaign has been losing? Basically the fact that he kept talking over and interrupting a woman. And by the way, maybe it was just me following that up after watching the Trump-Biden debate, but I thought the interruptions were incredibly mild. They weren't loud. They weren't, you know, overly aggressive. It's in the words of Kamala Harris, it was a debate. Okay? So it's, and to go from that into this mansplaining thing. The media ran on this mansplaining thing of how, well, Mike Pence just did that to her because this is indicative of what women always have to deal with. Mark Ruffalo tweeting that this is, you know, just white male supremacy in action right here. Forgetting the fact that it was a fucking debate. Like, what is it saying about, and this is, man, all this goes just into this whole regressive thing. Remember when we were all calling, like, these progressive left-wingers who had these backwards ideas regressive? Because in a way, it just takes us right back. It just horseshoes us right over to the worst aspects of the other side. where like women are these strong, independent creatures, but if you just even try to exchange an idea with them in a debate, you're mansplaining. None of this makes any sense. And again, I think all that kind of stuff, I think, ends up in the long run helping the Trump-Pence campaign. Because people are just, they're tired of this. I think just, this is the reason you got Trump in the first place. This is the attitude that people have towards the media and towards political elites and, you know, blue check mark Twitter and celebrities and all these people, that they fucking hate that. Almost everyone does. And this includes a lot of lefties too. They're like, okay, just stop. And I think they know that they want them to stop. I think they realize why it's a problem and how that just rallies people to just have nothing but disdain for those kind of talking points. And look, it's not like sexism and racism aren't an issue and that they're not bad. It's that, dude, every fucking thing is not racist and sexist. Two people can have a debate without being mansplained. You know, when Joe Biden had a debate with Sarah Palin, the idea that we would say, well, everything Joe did was mansplaining to Sarah Palin. No. Sarah Palin was a fucking moron. And it's a debate. Dude, what is this thing where we have to treat women with kids' gloves if they're going to get into politics? Like this, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. And what is your opinion of women that makes them look that fucking weak? So there was also that, and then of course the other thing that media kept talking about was the fly that landed in Mike Pence's hair. Like, goddamn, of course, American media is going to talk about the fly, and not Kamala. In addition, with Joe Biden not answering about whether or not they plan on packing the courts, Biden and Kamala both saying that they don't want to end fracking, which they have said that they don't support. Just has a slightly milder version of the Green New Deal, but he supports the Green New Deal. It's on his website. So, of course, none of that's going to get talked over with media. What's going to get talked over with media is this silliness, mansplaining, which is like, man, you want to talk about how we can't have a serious conversation? Look no further than that. Or a fucking fly landing in Mike Pence's hair. Whatever. At least some cool memes came out of the fly. The mansplaining was just garbage. But anyways, on to other news, I did mention, as everyone knows, Trump had COVID. And I say had COVID because apparently our overweight 74-year-old president kicked this thing over the course of like 5 days. And I say that because there are several outlets that are reporting that he is consistently testing negative for COVID now. So Trump had COVID and Trump beat COVID within like a week. And also Chris Christie had COVID and has beat COVID. Chris Christie, the guy with like a dozen comorbidities, has kicked COVID. And this is another thing that I know like a lot of people have said, and I'm totally going to repeat it just based off the stats that I've seen. The average age of death for people dying from COVID is 82 years old. And for 99% of Americans, this thing is basically like a nasty flu that almost everyone survives. So this is something that has to be taken into account as we roll in to the 7th month into 15 days to flatten the curve. It's something that just has to be said here. What the fuck is going on? I mean, it's not that the virus isn't lethal to some groups of people, but the attention has to be on those groups and not on every motherfucker in the entire country. Not all 320 million of us. It needs to be on the people with those kinds of underlying conditions. And when we talk about comorbidities, a lot of people are saying, like, well, being overweight is a comorbidity, and like how many people are like that. Well, it's obviously not just overweight people. It's obviously people who are either grossly overweight or have a shitload of other underlying conditions based on them being overweight. Chris Christie just kicked this thing. I mean, dude, there are plenty of overweight people who have had this and not died. So it isn't just like, well, even if a chubby guy gets it, that's going to kill him. That's just disingenuous as fuck. And my first videos on this channel were, I think it was like a 4 or 5 part series about how the government response to COVID wasn't capitalism and how I was against it. And I'm glad. I think the further we go along, I think I feel more confident that I was on the right side of that issue. I thought the lockdowns were bullshit then. I think they're bullshit now. And the fact that I've said that from the beginning, that the lockdowns were going to be indefinite, and now we're here. Dude, we're rolling into 7 months. And, if Biden wins, Biden's talking about at least the first 3 months of next year, once he gets in, are going to be mass mandates and like total lockdowns. So where does this end? It is indefinite. For all the people that are like, well, no, what you got to do is you got to do X, Y, and Z. It's like, no, dude, it's indefinite. It's not going to end until like what? They haven't even said what exactly we're looking for. Like it started with, we're going to flatten the curve. We're not going to overload the hospitals. We got to make sure like the ventilators are available. Like we've done all that. We've done all that, and we're still here. And there's still places locked down. You know, there's still like, they're talking like Halloween's coming up. And people are talking about how like Halloween, basically like trick-or-treating being banned. Obviously the pub crawls will be banned, at least where I am, because, you know, we're the one county in the state of Texas, Harris County, which is around the Houston area. We're the one county where bars are not allowed to reopen. You know, the Governor Abbott put out a statement about how the bars are going to be able to open. But of course the geniuses here in Harris County are going to say, well, no, that's not going to happen. So no pub crawls, nothing like that. But even like trick-or-treating, a lot of places I hear are putting a ban on trick-or-treating this year because of COVID, which is also insane. Because one, like, you know, the whole thing, like, let's worry about the kids. Well, the kids, it's been shown the kids are the least likely to die from COVID. You know, if you're saying, well, the kid can have it and the kid can pass it to the old people, okay, so it's incumbent on the old people who are at risk to not trick-or-treat, to not engage in trick-or-treating. Why does it have to be banned for everybody? Like, I wish people understood this. I don't understand also why you can go to your local drive-thru at a fast food joint, but you can't, like, open a door and pour candy in a kid's bag. This is stupid. Like, yeah, you can go to the fucking grocery store and you can fucking buy everything you want in there. You can corral in fucking Walmarts and you can corral in Target, you know, Best Buy, you know, whatever the fuck. You can do all that. But, oh no, this whole thing where, like, kids will go up to a stranger's door and get candy. We're gonna get rid of that because of the possibility a virus can be... It's stupid. It's fucking dumb. Plus, most kids are wearing masks anyways. Like, I understand they're not, like... It's not like necessarily like a cloth mask or something, but you're wearing a mask so you're not, like, breathing in each other's faces. Like, the whole thing is just dumb, and it's scary kind of to watch people just regurgitate like state narratives and federal mandates as if like, well, this is just absolutely what you have to do. I mean, we got to think of the children. Like, people are still arguing like we can't have schools open because the kids won't wear masks. It's like, man, it's really bizarre to see the amount of control people are willing to give the government in times where they're scared. This is why Bush had like a 98% approval rating after 9/11. I mean, it's that kind of thinking, really. And it's not, you know, directed to, like, one politician, but it's directed to the power of the state, this confidence we have in the power of the state to know what's best for us, and that we will just surrender some of the most basic liberties to it just because, hey, man, some people are dying. And I understand, I'm not undermining over 200,000 people dying. I'm saying 200,000 people in a country of 320 million, where the average age of death from this thing is 82. I mean... Like, we have to put things in a perspective here. And this kind of segues into the last topic I wanted to talk about, because I voted yesterday. The wife and I went and voted yesterday. And yeah, it was interesting how it works. By the way, it helped dispel another myth of mine. In 2016, when I voted, I had the wrong address on my driver's license because I had moved at the time. And I had the different address. And I went to vote with a different address. Now, I had been told that, you know, if you got to show your ID, this is going to disenfranchise voters, and it's also going to make it more of a hassle, because if everything's not right on your license, you won't be able to vote. Well, I remember in 2016 going to vote, and I had the wrong address, and they asked me if I still live there, and I said, no, I've recently moved. And they said, okay, well, we can just clear it up after you vote. So, having the wrong address on your license when I went to show them did not stop me from voting. Okay, and by the way, let's contrast that, because that same year I had bought a handgun, and I was denied buying the handgun because the address wasn't right. Same situation for voting, I could vote, but same situation for buying a handgun, I could not until I had all that cleared up. Just to dispel one myth. Well, another myth that was dispelled this year was that my wife and I got married in April, and because of the lockdowns and because the government agencies like Social Security and the driver's license, or the DMV, because they're government institutions, they are way worse than private institutions at getting back up and running for business. So it's taken us several months just to get her name changed in the government system. So we finally have that, but she hasn't got her new license yet. So she goes up to vote, and this is something that I've always heard. In the state of Texas, you have a voter ID law, which you have to show a driver's license or some form of state-recognized ID or whatever to vote. And she did it, and her name wasn't actually changed. And I even asked for her, is this going to be a problem? And they looked at me like I was crazy. They were like, well, no, of course not. Like, as long as she has her ID and it's anything close with, like, a state ID with, like, her picture on it, that sort of thing, it's fine. So, no, it did not stop her from voting, even though she didn't actually have the license with her new last name on it. So, just to dispel yet another myth that I've heard for fucking ever. But anyways, yes, I went to vote. I did vote straight Libertarian, including Joe Jorgensen. I pulled the lever for Jorgensen, not a single Democrat or Republican. And just to think why. It's really hit me recently, and this is what tied into the COVID situation. It really hit me recently that libertarianism has a really long way to go if it's ever going to catch on, because people in this country stopped giving a fuck about freedom a long time ago. A libertarian wants freedom for A through Z, when your average American is okay with just X, Y, Z, if it comes with state safety. It's like a dog being totally fine with being in its kennel and on a leash all the time. As long as you rub its head occasionally, you give him a bowl of water, and you feed him a treat every once in a while. That's the average American, and that's something we absolutely have to change if this country is going to last any time, I think. You have to get back to just people understanding freedom, why it matters, and how we can solve our own fucking problems better than the goddamn government can. And look, this has been another thing, especially since I voted, that's been in my mind all day yesterday. It's pretty upsetting that even most libertarians that I follow and that I know aren't going to vote for Jorgensen. And my thinking for this is I understand a lot of their grievances with her. I understand some policy issues, but their biggest problems with her is just some of the blunders regarding the current culture war that's going on. I think the Libertarian Party in general is kind of oblivious to what it means in the current age to be against the Kamala Harris-Pence mansplaining thing. Just coming down on the right side of that goes a long way for a lot of people. The Joe Jorgensen tweet blunders, the All Lives Matter, are being supposedly against the All Lives Matter slogan, and supporting Black Lives Matter and things like that. What that means in terms of this culture war that's going on, I understand beefs with that, but I also don't understand how I can hear more praise from libertarians and ANCAPs. I can hear more praise for fucking Tulsi Gabbard than I can for Joe Jorgensen. Even on the one issue Tulsi Gabbard was good at, which is war, Jorgensen's better. Joe Jorgensen has a better position on war than Tulsi Gabbard does, and that was the only thing Tulsi was good at. Tulsi was a gun-grabbing, universal health care, increased taxes and spending lib. But I could hear more praise for Tulsi Gabbard from libertarians than I can from Joe Jorgensen. And that just tells me right there, the movement really is fucked unless something major happens. But that's not why I voted libertarian. That's not why I am a libertarian. I'm a libertarian because it's right. Because it makes the most sense and it has the most consistent principles that I align myself with. I would love to see no state at all. That's something I disagree with Joe Jorgensen on. She's more of a Ron Paul-esque, Jeffersonian type government, which I think would be way better than what we have. But I'm all about ending the state altogether. The state shouldn't exist. But hey, look, if I could at least get to the Jorgensen level, we can have that conversation all day long. But we have to do something instead of rearranging the deck furniture on the Titanic, which is what Biden and Trump are doing. They're both proposing to expand the dying empire. Neither of them offers any solution that would actually help. And it's funny that people that say that voting third party is a wasted vote, but what is more of a wasted vote than voting for the status quo and expecting new results? That's all Trump and Biden are. Hey man, if you want to fiddle on the deck of the Titanic while the whole thing is sinking and everybody's dying of hypothermia or drowning or whatever, you're more than free to do that. I'm saying dude, something huge has to change here because this whole thing is fucked. But anyways, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Everybody stick around. I have more planned for the stateless solutions. I would love to do... I want to cover all of that and just compile all that shit into a fucking book. Just all my thoughts on how you can have society without a government at all, which is the preferable situation. But, dude, if we can just get it down to where it's like absolutely nothing that resembles what's happening now. But you have to do that through changing people's minds. You have to do it through getting people to understand, like, anything like what's going on with the lockdown now. In any society that appreciates, understands, admires, loves, craves freedom, like, this would be so egregious that it would not be allowed to happen. But we don't have that society. I think we can, it's possible. It's better that it's more likely that that can happen here than probably any other country in the world. Because we do have a rich history of, you know, freedom loving and liberty and independence. We talk about it all the time, though most people talk about it and they think they are free and they have absolutely no fucking clue how unfree they truly are. But hey, the only way you can change that is through changing the minds of the people, and it's going to be a long, hard process because people are literally indoctrinated to want, need, and depend on the state apparatus and its control for security. Like, having conversations with conservatives about how, like, and it's all wrapped around police and military and how that's just, you absolutely have to have that. And what I'm trying to explain is, you can have that, but what you won't have is a state institution with a monopoly on force and violence. But anyways, I'm done here. Look forward to more of that in future videos. It's fun to do another one of these because I love just tackling a bunch of topics. It's been too long, but there will be more to come, so stick around, guys.